The stars of a recent documentary film made a stop this weekend at the African American Heritage Museum to help local families track their ancestry, tell stories, and scan documents. Mallory West was there and learned why those knowing from the past help solidify the future.
A family history weekend was held the 27th through the 29th to help people in the area track their genealogy, preserve important documents, and record family stories. The event was hosted by those who worked on the documentary film Acts of Reparation, which follows the stories of Selena Lewis Davidson and Mackie Olston.
We were interested in the conversations that were arising around discussing reparations, and we decided to ask each other, what does reparations mean to you? And we both answered that question differently, but it both took us to our ancestral lands.
Alicia Jones, who worked on the film, says knowing your ancestry is important in building the future.
My grandmother, her family were sharecroppers, and so I wanted to know more about that history, and just for my own child, like to be able to tell her the stories and accurately represent it for her. So even for myself, like I've definitely been inspired.
One participant at the event says through learning about their ancestry, her family has been brought closer.
It just gave me a little more insight on family as a whole, you know, how important it is for us to remain strong, for us to remain close and together so that we could keep what they worked so hard for, which was us being strong and pulling together as a family.
To learn more about the documentary and their upcoming events, visit actsofreparation.com.
If we ask this question, what can we do to be a part of the healing and repair of our country's worst chapter, the legacy of slavery? If we lean in and do something, then those small acts of repair can lead to really big change.
In Monroe, Mallory West, KNOE 8 News.